Before we left for commercial, somebody asked the question, what are the basic steps an internet business should take to protect their intellectual property assets?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a fundamental question that businesses need to ask. And the first part of doing that is figuring out what is the intellectual property that you're working with, and how do you want to control or use it in order to presumably make a profit and keep others from using it. And so there's two sort of sides to that question. One is sort of the physical side. Once you put something into digital format and make it available, it's very easy to copy, and people can take it and use it in their own activities. Then it becomes a question of how do you stop them later or enforce their preventing them from using it. The other side of it is a licensing and contract type side. And by statute, a person who creates or has a copyright in something, specifically for copyright, they have the exclusive right to the use of that materials. And so one thing that businesses do on the internet is they create a terms of service, which essentially identifies and creates the relationship between people who come on and use the website and the provider of that website. So Facebook, MySpace, Google, all these companies, they have terms of service when you go and use their websites. And by using their website, you agree to that terms of service. Those terms of service can include requirements and licenses and information transfer in terms of what is copyrighted, what the rights are that are being given for use of that material by using the website, and those sorts of issues. So that can be one way that an internet company can address and try to protect its intellectual property. In terms of copyrights, I think the physical control of the material when you're putting it on a web page is particularly important. If you put a very high quality picture, for example, onto your website, someone can easily copy it. And the real onus on the copyright owner is to find that person and prosecute them if they use it and try to make money off of it. And you don't want to get into that position in the first place. Trademarks, for example, another intellectual property asset, is more about misrepresentation to consumers. And so you can put your mark available on your website, your name, whatever it is that you're using to identify yourself, your brand. And you can then, if someone starts to use it, you can sue them to stop them from using that mark. Now, if they're doing it somewhere where you don't even notice it and nobody else notices it, then the harm isn't that bad, so it's not a big deal. Whereas with copyright, you can have just using your materials and using that in smaller places that you don't notice can be more of an issue. Another area that a copyright owner would need, or I'm sorry, a internet business would need to consider is confidential information. Proprietary information. A lot of times businesses do not realize that a vast resource that they have or asset is their experience, their materials that they provide, the training that they give for services, or other parts of the product that they give, and it is not tied necessarily directly to a physical object that they give or a report that they provide. And so it becomes important on the internet not to, or at least to manage and think about how are you going to use that information. So providing one chapter of a 10-chapter book on the internet might be one way to get people to then buy a physical copy of the actual book, or putting password protection onto a website so that people are only able to get into using the copyrighted or confidential proprietary information on a website, like its database or the information inside that database. Putting those kind of physical controls or access controls can be very important. But what's fundamental is every situation is different, and so what a copyright or what an intellectual property owner needs to do is first identify what it is that they want to protect, why they're protecting it, how they're using it, and then come up with a plan as to how they're actually going to institute either contracts or licenses or physical controls or a whole host of other options in order to manage that asset.
Okay. So what are, well, in terms of the intellectual property and on the internet, how is an internet business different under the law from a regular brick and mortar business?
Well, and that's an interesting area because a internet business is really no different as a business as far as the legal authorities are concerned than any other business. It operates in a different medium, but as an entity, as a structure, as a corporation or an LLC, it is the same thing as any other brick and mortar entity would be. And so an internet business still needs to, for example, if there's partners or if there are shareholders, board members, however that entity, the owners and the people who are setting it up want to set it up, they still need to go about engaging in creating an appropriate entity, creating a structure so it's appropriate for how they want to do business with that within the internet context.